You're listening to 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake and 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. Today's edition of the Megacast begins now. Welcome to the Megacast, our live local TV, radio, and streaming show looking into all things Michigan. I'm Tyler Kieft. Today we'll be talking to a number of people about topics of interest and importance to Michiganders like you. Let's get started with what's making headlines today on CivicCenterTV.com's local news page. Our first story comes from Kristen Jordan Seamus at the Detroit Free Press. Despite current numbers showing 60% of Michiganders afflicted with monkeypox to this point having been Black, only 17% of monkeypox vaccine recipients have also been Black, with 70% of those receiving vaccine being white. And when a common antiviral treatment for monkeypox, known as TPOXX, became available here in Southeast Michigan, most of those doses were sent to Oakland and Washtenaw counties and not to the city of Detroit, where 38% of the state's current cases reside. This creates another problem. It's not just that these treatments are not available to people in Detroit. The issue tends to be access to those treatments being difficult due to travel, and even more so due to a lack of local healthcare facilities to provide those treatments that are local to Detroiters. While the vaccine, of course, is available from healthcare providers and other locations throughout the state of Michigan, including in the city of Detroit, this particular treatment being available in Oakland and Washtenaw County requires Detroiters to travel to these places. And in many cases, they're unable to do so because of financial constraints, because of travel constraints, because of timing, because of their jobs, and having to set aside all that time to navigate from the city of Detroit to outside counties and other areas just to get these treatments. It's not that they're not available to Detroiters, it's that the availability is significantly more difficult. When asked earlier this week by the Free Press about the TPOXX treatment, the MDHHS responded saying, quote, "When the state facilitated product coming into Michigan, that product was allocated to local health departments that already had cases. This included the Detroit health departments and clinicians in the city who were treating positive patients," and close quote, said Chelsea Wuth, a spokesperson for the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. Let's also take a look at the numbers from Seamus's article in the Detroit Free Press. Currently, demographics are showing that among monkeypox patients, 60% of those patients are Black, 34% are white, 6% identified as Latinx or Hispanic, but may also identify with another race as well. 2% were among the Asian American and Pacific Islander population, and less than 1% were either Native American or Alaskan Native, with 3% being put in the other category. Tons of more info in this article. I mean, it's very extensive. It goes into some of the many disparities in monkeypox treatment and vaccine here in the state of Michigan, and goes into great detail. I highly encourage you to click through to this article on our website at CivicCenterTV.com on our local news page. Kristen did some great work there. Also making headlines today from Mike Wilkinson at Bridge, Michigan. Lawmakers approved a new extensive scholarship program this week that may provide upwards of $5,500 in scholarships per year per student at Michigan's 15 public colleges and universities. This could be a game changer in higher education in our state, as post-high school graduation college enrollment fell by 5% from 60% to 55% over the course of the pandemic. The Senate approved the legislation in a 33-0 vote on Wednesday, with the House of Representatives voting 78-26 in the affirmative, with most of the dissenting votes coming from the Republican caucus. Some experts are predicting that 75% of Michigan families could qualify for this scholarship money. Finally, making headlines today on CivicCenterTV.com's local news page from MLive's Ben Orner, Jordan Hermani, and Alyssa Burr. We heard earlier on this week that state lawmakers were becoming more receptive across the board, Republicans and Democrats alike, to providing additional time for clerks statewide to pre-process absentee ballots in future elections. That has now become a reality. Just before skipping town for election season, lawmakers also shook hands on a deal to allow local clerks to pre-process absentee ballots within 48 hours of an election day. Municipalities with 10,000 or more residents will be able to pre-process ballots and mark registration numbers within 2 days before August and November elections going forward. Keep in mind, no votes in these cases will be tabulated on those days. Those will only happen on election day proper. This merely allows local clerks and absentee ballot counting boards in municipalities across the state to speed up the tabulating process that happens on election day by eliminating some, but not all, of the busy work that goes into preparing absentee ballots to be counted. It's important busy work, but more often that time is used on election day, and it slows down the tabulating process. The more time that they have to do it before the day of the election, the quicker they can process those ballots and tabulate those ballots on election day, and the sooner you will get results. This is getting positive reception from people across the aisle. Brighton Republican Ann Bowman said on the deal, quote, "The goal is to put forth good policy, and I'm happy to say that all sides were able to come together," and closed quote. A Democratic Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson also responded favorably to the deal, stating, quote, "For years, I've pressed lawmakers toward this progress, and I will continue to press them to expand these laws and enact the real change all Michiganders need." Similarly, by unnecessarily excluding military spouses and dependents serving our country overseas from electronic ballot return, the package expands voting rights for some while needlessly discriminating against other members of the military community who serve, sacrifice, and deserve our support, and closed quote. All those headlines making news today on CivicCenterTV.com's local news page, along with those ever helpful links to COVID-19 updates and information from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention at the federal level, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, statewide and locally from the Oakland County Health Division. We have a great show ahead on this Thursday edition of the Megacast. Coming up next, we'll talk mental health with Birmingham Maple Clinic therapist Carrie Krawiec. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
Let's whoop it up for these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the cheering going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date.
Fire Prevention Week is just around the corner. Join volunteer, part-time, and on-call firefighters at this year's Fire Open House. Catch up on your fire safety knowledge with live demonstrations and hands-on activities. Chat with local businesses and resources about fire prevention, see some familiar faces, fight future fires, and make some new friends. The West Bloomfield Fire Open House, October 2nd from noon to 3 p.m. at Fire Station 1 on Orchard Lake Road.
In the face of COVID-19, staying healthy is important. And now the same is true as we face the flu. Influenza has the potential to infect millions, putting lives and the healthcare system at risk. Fortunately, it's easy to protect yourself. The flu vaccine is safe and effective, and with COVID-19 still spreading, it's essential. To see how you can hit this virus head-on, visit michigan.gov/flu. Now that the vaccine is available for children 5 and up, why do you recommend it?
Kids are part of the community and they can spread COVID.
We're seeing both healthy children getting sick from the virus as well as children with underlying health conditions.
They can easily bring the virus home to other people that are vulnerable and make them sick as well.
This vaccine can change that and keep children safe.
It's essential that your children get vaccinated to protect them, to protect your families, and to protect those in the community around you.
Welcome back to the Megacast, our live local 5 days per week TV, radio, and streaming show looking into all things Michigan. I'm Tyler Kieft. Learn more about our program on our website, CivicCenterTV.com/Megacast. You'll find more information on all of our partnering stations and find all of our full shows and each individual interview on each program on demand as well. CivicCenterTV.com/Megacast. Megacast. Well, everybody has their own individual trauma, but when that trauma goes unmitigated, could it affect other people in your family both now and in the future, even those that may not actually be here just yet? Joining us now to talk about that and the idea of ancestral trauma is Carrie Krawiec, a therapist at the Birmingham Maple Clinic. Carrie, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good morning to you as well. For those that may not be familiar with this terminology, define ancestral trauma for us and just how commonly this affects people in our communities and others.
So, like you said, ancestral trauma has a couple other names, transgenerational trauma or intergenerational trauma, but it really refers to the psychological, physiological, and social effects of trauma that's happened in generations before and the sort of chain reaction it causes in people's development across their lifetime.
And so, what are some of the ways in which ancestral trauma may be manifested among people across these generations? Because while in many cases people may have mental health issues or traumatic experiences that aren't addressed in their lives, that may not even be something that is ever brought up to somebody else in the next generation, but it still can affect them.
Sure. In my mind, I'm thinking, like it can occur in small, medium, and large ways. And I don't mean about the intensity of the trauma, but I mean, even the expansive of people it covers. So for example, something like genocide, war, an international pandemic, right? Like these traumas exist in one generation, but may shape what happens to a group of people after that. Or they can happen in isolated families. For example, if you had a parent or grandparent who, say, for example, was raped in their youth, that may shape the attitudes they discuss about sex and relationships, that may shape the attitudes about safety and other people, and may shape their attitudes about social anxiety and being outside the home. And those things would get passed to their children to be very vigilant of people or strangers, to be very cautious about their romantic relationships, which would then shape their future moving forward.
And certainly has a significant impact on our society as well. You mentioned in your example there that some of these ancestral traumas can be quite severe on the large scale side, such as genocide or bodily oppression that has happened historically here in the United States and other places all across the world. So when these issues aren't mitigated, when they aren't addressed, just how significantly can they affect these next generations that are coming through that may also experience different levels of this trauma without really knowing the origin of it?
Well, and I think that's the most important thing, really. One of the remedies, one of the things that makes resilience possible is connecting with other people. It is communicating, it is telling the story and the narrative and having sort of, an understanding of these past traumas and that they did in fact exist, and that there can be recovery, healing, help as a result. It's when families turn to sort of secrecy, shoving down, denial that fosters the kind of space for things like, say, for addiction, for future traumas, like, say, incest or sexual abuse, right? It's actually with awareness. When we know better, we do better. So it's actually knowing about the past traumas that really helps the future generations recover and heal and prevent the future from repeating itself.
So even if these issues are addressed, the origin points of some of this ancestral trauma or intergenerational trauma, even if those are addressed and those are being talked through with a therapist or with family members, with knowledgeable people who maybe have experienced some of this themselves, even if those issues are talked through and maybe are better understood by the person that may be affected by them, can this ancestral trauma still continue to affect future generations at that point?
Sure, there's a growing body of research that even has, like I said, physiological components. So, for example, how your genes, epigenetics is how your environment impacts your genes. That there's a growing body of research that trauma that exists can actually shape which genes perform in which way. Now, I'm not an expert on those topics, but so right, there's going to be physiological genetic changes as a result of historical trauma. There's also even when you know things too, but depending on when you learn them or at different points in your life, you may have different attitudes. At some point in your life, you may have hostility towards your parents. Why did they behave this way? Why couldn't they get their act together, even though they had gone through something difficult. But there may also be a time in your life where you might feel sort of compassion or empathy to say, wow, I really understand. This was an impossible situation, or this was very challenging, and use it as a source of pride and a source of empowerment to move forward, to say, wow, look at the incredible, difficult things my family has gone through, and yet still we can thrive. I think a wonderful depiction of that is the movie Encanto, which is so popular. Here's a forced migration, violence, right? Fleeing with armed people, and you see the results of that. The family becomes very anxious, very perfectionistic. Everybody's supposed to do and behave and act a certain way. And then it's through kind of coming to say, hey, look, we can be different now. We're in different circumstances. We can have pride in ourselves and our differences. We don't have to be so sheltered and perfectionistic.
In terms of society, or in terms of things that are out in the world that can trigger some of these traumas, what do you suggest for people that may be affected by intergenerational trauma of this way? Because certainly in the last few years, we have seen many different flashpoints in our society that could be triggering in those sorts of ways, such as the events that led up to the Black Lives Matter movement really taking steam a few years ago in the murder of George Floyd, and the uptick in visible police brutality out in our communities. Certainly hate crimes against Asian American and Pacific Islanders, hate crimes against women, misogyny and racism on the rise in our political rhetoric. All of those things can be incredibly traumatizing to people in these historically oppressed and currently oppressed populations. So what do you suggest for them as they're experiencing these things like you and I are in the news and out in society, to address these issues without them becoming another trigger to some of these traumas necessarily, that can really have a serious effect on them in the here and now, and as we've already discussed ad nauseum in this interview, in the future?
Sure. So, I think one of the things, encountering things that are challenging, damaging, traumatic in our lives is part of sort of our contract with living, right? So this is going to happen across our lifetime. We're going to be exposed to things that are scary, overwhelming, and we are equipped to handle them. But that being said, like you said, it's important to monitor, right, the intensity and the severity of the reaction you're having, right? Like if it's becoming debilitating, if it's getting in the way of work or relationships, if it's getting in the way of your own self-care, hygiene, diet, exercise, sort of healthful living. Those are times to really seek intervention, and to have a diagnostic assessment to understand, am I suffering from anxiety or depression or, obsessive compulsive disorder thoughts, eating disorder, addiction, whatever it may be, and then use that as an avenue to get the help you need, even if it comes from a cause that might be, like you said, something traumatic or triggering. I think it's not everything necessarily. Of course, there are many triggers. Not everything has to be triggering or even in your awareness, but to just be aware. I know an example of a colleague, a coworker who was working with a client, 2 months ago about. And this person said, I just don't know why I'm feeling terrible today. I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling overwhelmed. And she said, and the therapist said, well, of course, everybody would be. The Supreme Court has just weighed in on abortion rights. And this makes perfect sense. But, in our minds, we don't necessarily say oh, well, what would that have to do with me or whatever? I have no idea why I would have any feeling about that. Sometimes just talking about it and having someone else say, oh, yes, of course. It makes sense you're having a reaction to that, can be incredibly validating and incredibly soothing in itself.
We're joined by Carrie Krawiec from the Birmingham Maple Clinic on today's edition of the Megacast. Again, you can learn more information and get in contact with the Birmingham Maple Clinic and their therapists and other experts at birminghammaple.com. Their phone number is also 248-646-6659, 248-646-6659 for more information. Carrie, another couple minutes with you today. And in terms of addressing these issues with a psychologist, with a therapist, or another professional, what suggestions do you have for people, particularly those that are in very specific marginalized groups that experience this intergenerational problem, to find somebody that they can talk to that is a professional that may have a little bit more of an informed idea about some of these specific traumas that certain groups are going through or have been going through over generations?
Sure. And I think like therapists have training and the skills and abilities to ask certain questions or to at least hold in their mind, of course, there is more I don't understand here, and really use their client as their educator to say, you explain to me, right, why this is an issue, or please explain to me the culture, the background, the culture of your family, because even within a certain race, culture, population, if family has its own roles, rules, expectations, that were a derivative of whatever culture came before. So you're always learning. Therapists are always learning from their clients and kind of holding that information, holding the space for that information. I think, like I said before, I think one thing we all could stand to do better, because the research says it so supports resiliency, is get familiar with their family stories, get familiar with the family tree, get familiar with the timeline, ask questions. If you have aging people in your family still alive, ask them questions. They're delighted to share the information, even if it's hard for them, and be mindful of that. It could be hard for them. They could experience their own traumas, be gentle, safe, maybe keep it to shortened amount of times. Of certainly ask their permission if they feel comfortable talking, but use them as resources to really gain awareness and understanding. And if you can't connect the dots of, look, I wonder how this parlays into something I'm experiencing in the present, a therapist might be able to make those connections. I wonder if a person who experienced that would have also felt this way, and be able to draw those parallels.
Well, Carrie, we appreciate you joining us, giving us some more insight on ancestral trauma and intergenerational trauma and some of the ways that we can address it, because it certainly affects many people in many different ways all across the board. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much.
248-646-6659 is the phone number, 248-646-6659 to get in contact with the Birmingham Maple Clinic. You can also do so on the website, birminghammaple.com. Coming up next, we'll be joined by Dewey Steffen from Great Lakes Wealth, and we'll talk about dealing with the market, with your investments, and saving for the future, especially in the times that we're in with the uncertainty in the market. That's coming up next. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
Let's savor these moments. Made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the dining out going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date. Let's relish these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the festivals going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date. Can I ask you a question? Why do you want to get the COVID-19 vaccine?
I don't like getting sick. The virus will die. It will be easy to not catch it. Keep my family safe and keep playing soccer. Because I love being vaccinated.
What's your hope for everyone?
I hope everybody gets the vaccine. To keep safe and strong. Be happy, having fun everywhere. Everyone stay safe and hope you get the vaccine.
Let's whoop it up for these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the cheering going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date.
Fire Prevention Week is just around the corner. Join volunteer, part-time, and on-call firefighters at this year's Fire Open House. Catch up on your fire safety knowledge with live demonstrations and hands-on activities. Chat with local businesses and resources about fire prevention, see some familiar faces, fight future fires, and make some new friends. The West Bloomfield Fire Open House, October 2nd from noon to 3 p.m. at Fire Station 1 on Orchard Lake Road.
In the face of COVID-19, staying healthy is important. And now the same is true as we face the flu. Influenza has the potential to infect millions, putting lives and the healthcare system at risk. Fortunately, it's easy to protect yourself. The flu vaccine is safe and effective, and with COVID-19 still spreading, it's essential. To see how you can hit this virus head-on, visit michigan.gov/flu. Now that the vaccine is available for children 5 and up, why do you recommend it?
Kids are part of the community and they can spread COVID.
We're seeing both healthy children getting sick from the virus as well as children with underlying health conditions.
They can easily bring the virus home to other people that are vulnerable and make them sick as well.
This vaccine can change that and keep children safe.
It's essential that your children get vaccinated to protect them, to protect your families, and to protect those in the community around you.
Let's savor these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the dining out going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date.
Welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Kieft. You're watching our live, local, 5 days per week TV, radio, and streaming show looking into all things Michigan. You can learn more about all of our partnering stations and find all of our shows on demand by visiting civiccentertv.com/megacast. We'll also find all the links to all of our partnering stations too and learn more about their original programming happening in your local area. Joining us now on the Megacast is the CEO and Chief Investment Officer with Great Lakes Wealth. Dewey Steffen joins us once again on today's edition of the Megacast. Dewey, thanks for being with us.
Tyler, thanks for having me. It's great to see you.
Good to see you as well. So let's get right into it. Good news that came out today from the Michigan legislature. Actually, late yesterday, they struck a deal on some additional college scholarship opportunities for students here in the state of Michigan, where they could get upwards of $5,500 per student per semester for tuition, which would be a huge help because college is just so expensive, especially today, Dewey. And let's start off by talking about saving for college. When do you suggest that should start for parents and for individuals who may start getting into working age in their teens and be thinking about paying for college down the road?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. And absolutely also great news out of Lansing yesterday. So that's 2 thumbs up for those needy individuals for sure. And to answer your question, it really depends on the household. And the quick answer is as early as you can, right? Start now. That's the easy answer, Tyler. But the real answer is you have to understand in your household where things are currently. We actually tell a lot of our clients, you need to save for your retirement before you save for your child's education. You need to take care of yourself before you can take care of others. So we do say that. So if it's for parents or grandparents, you need to make sure you have yourself set before you start to fund your child's education. But if it's the child or you're there, then it is as soon as you can and understand exactly what you're trying to do and how you do it.
In terms of utilizing whatever money you are bringing in, if you are a kid and you are bringing in a paycheck from, some part-time work that you're doing in between school or as you're saving up for college, maybe after you graduate high school for a couple of years, you take a step back, try to save some money. What can they do to further bolster the money that they have in the bank and therefore be better equipped to pay for their tuition, pay for some of their loans as they go into college?
Tyler, that's an amazing question also. And for all the young people out there watching now or that watch it, later this evening or whenever, this is so important and so important right now for several reasons. The stock market is way down this year. And if you're investing long-term, that will be your friend. And you can also invest in some liquid types of real estate and other things, but also savings accounts, money markets are paying triple what they paid just last year. So they're paying upwards of 3%. When they used to pay only 1%. So even if it's just putting it in cash, you can make 3x what you made last year. But I would argue with the stock market, you absolutely have the opportunity to make 10x, 10 times, 10% per annum over a period of time. But to answer your question, the vehicle that I would recommend for those young listeners and young viewers would be a Roth IRA. Put up to $6,000 that you've saved this year with that side hustle or that part-time summer job and fully fund a Roth IRA and do that ASAP.
Some great tips from Dewey Steffen, CEO and Chief Investment Officer at Great Lakes Wealth on today's edition of the Megacast. You can learn more information and find some of their resources. Get in contact with them on their website, greatlakeswealth.us, greatlakeswealth.us, or call them 248-378-1200, 248-378-1200 for more information. We're about to head into October, and October is Financial Planning Month, Dewey. In terms of financial planning, what are some of those first steps that people should be taking each month or as they're putting together a financial plan for their future to make sure they keep their finances in order and keep their savings in order for future retirement?
Again, another fantastic question. And although October is Financial Planning Month, every month should be Financial Planning Month. So take it that seriously. And to answer your question directly, you need to save, you need to plan first. So plan, save, deal, and then invest. So we'll talk about what planning is, saving is, dealing with, and investing is. But to start it all off, as we always say, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And so, Tyler, with that, the first is get a plan. Understand your budget needs for the month, for the quarter, for the year, and understand what goals you're trying to achieve. So everything starts with the plan. And then after that, it's save. The most important thing, and we're seeing it right now with what's happened this year with the markets, and we saw it 2 years ago with COVID. You need to have 3 to 6 months saved, 3 to 6 months of cash of your monthly expenses. So add up your monthly expenses. Maybe they're $3,000 a month. You need 3 months worth. That's $9,000. And you need to put that away in the bank in something safe and liquid, like a money market or savings account. And then after that, you can deal with debt. And Tyler, the question I ask all of our clients or anyone watching your show today is, how can you easily make 24.99% return with all that's going on these days? Well, the answer is pay off that 24.99% credit card. That's an instant 24.99 savings. Amazing. So you've got to deal with debt, restructure debt. It was a lot easier to do a year ago. And when we first came on the show, we talked about it then. These interest rates were so historically low. You've got to deal with debt, bad debt, get rid of it, and restructure it to good debt. And that still hasn't changed. So deal with debt, pay down or pay off your debt. And then after that is invest for success. And there's so many ways to go. I'll take a breath and then we can get more into it.
Yeah, let's dive a little bit further into the idea of good debt versus bad debt. We hear that so often, but defining that for laymen like me can be a little bit more tough. That's why we have experts like you on the show, Dewey. So give us some examples of good debt versus bad debt, and why people want to have a lot of one and some of one and as little of as possible of the other.
Absolutely. So we're going to go back to front. So bad debt, let's start with that. If you are a young person, middle-aged person, or old person, and you take out a credit card with 24.99% interest or whatever the crazy number is, so that you can just go out to dinner, so that you can just go to the local mall or go online and do some shopping, that's bad debt. Live within your means is along those same lines. So don't be borrowing money to go buy things you don't need. Okay. The exception or the opposite of that would be good debt or things that you do need. So if you are in a pickle, which means a precarious situation, and you need something for life or death, then go borrow the money, because life is more important than death, and borrowing can, help you out in a pinch, but you can pay it off. So with those credit cards and lines of credit, they can be used in an emergency. So I didn't say close them out. I didn't say never use them, but don't have those types of expenses on there. Good debt would be home purchase. Even right now, which is unbelievable to me, the 30-year fixed mortgage rate went above 7% the other day, and it hadn't been there, in 15 years, and it was down to under 3% just 6 months ago. So this is the effect that the Federal Reserve raising interest rates is having out there. We can get deeper into that. But any mortgage, if you're going to buy a house, a good fixed mortgage, 7%. I would hopefully try to get better than that and weight that out a little bit. But that is an example of a good debt.
More information can be found, more resources can be found. GreatLakesWealth.us is their website. GreatLakesWealth.us is their website, where you can also find their podcast, the What Do We Do podcast, now in season 3. Dewey, it's coming back, or it already has come back, and the season has kicked off. What are you planning to discuss in upcoming episodes, and what have you already gone over on the podcast?
Yeah, so we're so excited to announce we just started season 3 of the podcast. What Do We Do? Please check it out on YouTube. Search it and find it on our YouTube channel. We have a website, whatdowedopodcast.com, which kind of summarizes everything there. This is a podcast of love. This is something we created during the COVID pandemic to help our community. And it's a play on my name, certainly Dewey, but what do we do? What do we do to invest for success? What do we do to reduce our debt? All that. So we also decided that if we can bring members of our community in to ask them what they would do, and whether that's specific to their industry, specific to their life's goals and dreams, or how they achieve the success that they've had, we all are the wiser. And so we are so proud. We've had over 15 guests on. We have one show a month with a guest, one without. Season 3, we kicked off about a month ago with Peter Vanderkay, local hero from Rochester Hills. He is a Michigan Wolverine, go blue, who also swam in 3 Olympics alongside the one, the only Michael Phelps. If Michael Phelps wasn't on the team, he would have been the anointed one, but he has 2 gold medals, 2 bronze medals, and he was on to share what it was like getting to that level, but now post Olympic swimming, post being a single man, swimming for Team USA and the Wolverines. Now he's a business leader, and hear his amazing journey, and his current situation is fantastic.
GreatLakesWealth.us is the website for Dewey's business and his podcast. What Do We Do Podcast.com. What Do We Do Podcast.com for more information and to listen to all their past 2 seasons before, and now on to season 3, including their first episode of the season that's already out with Peter Vanderkay, 4-time Olympic medalist. With us on the show today is Dewey Steffen. He is the CEO and the Chief Investment Officer at Great Lakes Wealth. Dewey, another couple minutes before we'll say goodbye today. Anything else that people should be keeping an eye out for in their investments in the markets at this time, as we continue to see a lot of fluctuation in the U.S. economy?
Yeah, so simply put, Tyler, don't panic, be patient, and always prepare to profit. And investing, it's always the opposite of the regular traditional world of the thought process. And we call this behavioral finance. Anything else in the world, when it's down and on sale, you would want to go buy it. If you could buy a car half off, you would buy it. If you go to the mall and see something on special 2 for $1, you would go buy it. But when the stock market comes down half, no one wants to buy it. They're scared of it. They just want to even sell it. It's doing the opposite. So we're not saying that the stock market is done going down. You do need to talk to your financial professional about your specific situation. But long term, the stock market has always 100% of the time long term gone up. And so right now, the S&P is down around 25%. So in theory, if it just goes up 10% from here, it's down 15% on the year, and you may make 10% on your money. So again, we actually believe from now until the election, which is early in November, you should be cautious and not aggressively investing. We actually had a second episode of the podcast that we came out with last Wednesday, and we talked about it, our Q4 playbook, investing for success in Q4 2022, which starts next Monday. And also we talk about how to prepare for 2023. So with that, again, there are opportunities everywhere. It can be in cash. They do say cash is king. And right now it might be. Bonds were bad, but bonds might be back. We'll talk about that the next time we're on, Tyler. Write that down. Our bonds back, but always invest for success.
What Do We Do Podcast.com for more information, as well as GreatLakesWealth.us. Dewey, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks again for having me.
Appreciate it. Do we mention the election is coming up just a little bit over, actually just 40 days from today until election day. And so as you're getting ready to go to the polls, what do you need to know about the candidates on the ballot in your local area and statewide, as well as ballot proposals, both statewide and in your hometown? We'll be joined by a couple of individuals, Paula Bowman and Christina Schlitt from the League of Women Voters of Michigan, up next on the Megacast.
Fire Prevention Week is just around the corner. Join volunteer, part-time, and on-call firefighters at this year's Fire Open House. Catch up on your fire safety knowledge with live demonstrations and hands-on activities. Chat with local businesses and resources about fire prevention, see some familiar faces, fight future fires, and make some new friends. The West Bloomfield Fire Open House, October 2nd from noon to 3 p.m. at Fire Station 1 on Orchard Lake Road.
In the face of COVID-19, staying healthy is important. And now the same is true as we face the flu. Influenza has the potential to infect millions, putting lives and the healthcare system at risk. Fortunately, it's easy to protect yourself. The flu vaccine is safe and effective, and with COVID-19 still spreading, it's essential. To see how you can hit this virus head-on, visit michigan.gov/flu. Now that the vaccine is available for children 5 and up, why do you recommend it?
Kids are part of the community and they can spread COVID.
We're seeing both healthy children getting sick from the virus as well as children with underlying health conditions.
They can easily bring the virus home to other people that are vulnerable and make them sick as well.
This vaccine can change that and keep children safe.
It's essential that your children get vaccinated to protect them, to protect your families, and to protect those in the community around you.
Let's savor these moments, made possible by the COVID-19 vaccine. Keep the dining out going by keeping yourself protected and your COVID-19 vaccines up to date.
Welcome back to the Megacast, our live, local 5 days per week TV, radio, and streaming show about all things Michigan. I'm Tyler Kieft. Learn more about our program on our website, civiccentertv.com/megacast, where you'll find more information on all of our partnering stations and find all of our full shows and individual interviews on demand. It is election season, and as you get ready to go to the polls, you want to make sure that you are going there informed and ready to vote on each of the ballot proposals and candidates as well. And that is an important thing. Important thing in doing that is knowing who's on the ballot, what they believe, and how that aligns with your political beliefs as well, so you can be an informed voter on everything up ballot and those down ballot proposals and positions as well. Joining us now to talk about some of the ways that you can do that are Paula Bowman and Christina Schlitt, the co-presidents of the League of Women Voters of Michigan, a nonpartisan organization, with us on today's edition of the Megacast. Thank you both for being with us.
Thank you for having us.
Appreciate having both of you on. Let's start off, Paula, we'll start with you just by asking, give us an overview of the League of Women Voters of Michigan and the work that you do to help inform voters in a nonpartisan way all across the Great Lakes state.
Well, the League of Women Voters of Michigan has been around for over 100 years. As you said, we are nonpartisan. We like to continually repeat that because it's a very important tenet of our mission that we never support or oppose any candidate or political party. We have about 2,600 members in Michigan. We have about 35 leagues all over the state, including several very robust leagues in the Upper Peninsula. And we try to serve the public with providing information about elections, candidates, never supporting them, of course, or opposing them, but providing them with nonpartisan information. And we do take positions on some issues after we have studied them very carefully.
And so, as you are going through election season and helping people in different areas all throughout the state of Michigan, Christina, what are some of those focus areas that your organization hones in on to help provide voters with the information that they need to make informed decisions when they go to the polls on election day?
Well, thank you. We have an online voter guide, www.vote411.org, and we have ballot information. We've provided pros and cons and what a yes vote means and what a no vote means. We also send invitations to all the state level candidates to participate in the candidate for or in the Vote 411. We send out questions and give them the opportunity to answer those questions. We make a concerted effort to follow up because sometimes people don't recognize that this is what we are asking for. We do not alter the responses. This is straight from the candidate. And we do, however, there is a word limit, so it drops off at that point. And if it's slanderous or of that nature, we don't, we ask the candidate to reconsider what they're saying. We also have a printed voter guide that's being distributed as we speak throughout the state. It is a reflection of Vote 411. However, it does not have your local races in it that Vote 411 online does.
And Christina, just to continue on from what Paula had said earlier, there are some certain issues, while the organization is nonpartisan, there are certain issues that you do take informed positions on. Can you discuss that and why the League of Women Voters does take a position on some of these issues, given that it's nonpartisan, and B, what you hope the impact of taking those positions is on voters?
Well, thank you. As you know, the League started out 102 years ago as an advocacy unit to get the vote for women. And we do have the two arms, the educational arm, where we're nonpartisan. We do not support or oppose candidates, but we do take we do take a stance supporting or opposing positions. And as Paula mentioned, we have positions based on study. We do not, if we don't have a position, then we remain silent on the issue. Many of our issues are being challenged now as being political, yet we've had those positions for more than 50 years and have worked with a number of people across the nation. How we do this is an extensive study by professionals, and then it is brought to the League as a whole to support it or not through consensus. And then we use it as a method to oppose or support particular items. We use it to influence the public policy through our advocacy. And part of that mission is to promote political responsibility through informed and active participation by citizens in government.
And so, Paula, going back to the Vote 411 resource, it's vote411.org. That is extensive for people all across the state of Michigan to be able to see different information on the candidates in their local area, on ballot initiatives that affect the entire state and maybe even their local area. But it also provides a resource where people can see their sample ballot and compare and contrast different sides of issues and different sides being taken by candidates on issues that affect their local area and statewide. Just how great of a resource can Vote 411 be for voters as they're preparing to go to the polls and really going in knowing what they want to check off on each box?
You know, it is such a help. We try to get people to look at this because it's one of the few sources that is nonpartisan. You know, you can find information about candidates from a lot of different articles or sources online, but there aren't many that are totally nonpartisan and allow voters to see the candidate responses as they have submitted them. As Christina said, we don't edit the responses to question. If somebody is a bad speller, the public sees that he's a bad speller. If someone chooses to make kind of a silly statement or even a legitimate statement or even give their website, all of that information is in the responses to the voter guide. We are also so lucky to have a Michigan Department of State that is rich with resources. And we do send people to those resources frequently on Vote 411 because they really are the authority. The League of Women Voters, certainly passes that information along, but a lot of our links go right to the Department of State regarding how to get an absentee ballot, whether you're registered or not, how to register to vote, you can register to vote right from the Vote 411 site. And it's not that we're passing the buck, it's just that the Department of State is the authority and they are very trustworthy in terms of the information that they pass out. And we feel the same, that they are giving people the best information and the most complete and accurate information possible.
We're joined by the co-presidents of the League of Women Voters of Michigan, Paula Bowman and Christina Schlitt, on today's edition of the Megacast. More information, lwv.org, and for information on local ballot initiatives, proposals, and candidates on a number of different issues and positions across the state of Michigan and in your local area can be found on their voter resource, vote411.org, vote411.org. Let's start with you, Christina, just another couple minutes left. Anything else that you'd like our audience to know about the League of Women Voters of Michigan that we haven't discussed today?
Yes, we'd like to elevate the fact that through our education process, we are a trusted source of information. And as Paula stated, we go to the source, the legal source, which is the Department of State. So we use that information, and we would like people to actually take the time to have the truth and not mis and distruths.
And Paula, you as well. Anything else we haven't discussed today you'd like to mention?
One event that we have coming up that I would really like to direct attention to, a lot of people don't know the role of the Board of Canvassers in Michigan, both at the county level and the state level. And we are having a panel of experts discuss that role on October 5th at 11 o'clock. And the public is invited to watch that information. It'll be on our website later, but it's also on our Facebook page live on that morning of October 5th at 11 o'clock. So it's a great part of the election process that a lot of people don't know about, but it's very important and it's gained in importance in the last several elections.
Well, we appreciate the work that you do. We do partner with the League of Women Voters Oakland area for some of the candidate forums that have happened in our coverage area at our flagship Civic Center TV in the greater West Bloomfield area. And currently right now, you can watch some of those candidate forums on our website, civiccentertv.com, where we have participated in forums for both the West Bloomfield School District Board of Education, as well as the city councils of Sylvan Lake and Keagle Harbor, civiccentertv.com for those, and vote411.org to learn more about the candidates on those for those positions and positions all across the state of Michigan, including in your local area at vote411.org. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Vote411.org is the website for their election resources, and to learn more about the candidates in your local area, you can also go to lwv.org and search for Michigan or your local League of Women Voters chapter to find more information on candidate forums and other political forums in your local area from this nonpartisan resource. lwv.org for that. Vote411.org is their website for their election resources for this and other elections in the future. That is going to do it for this Thursday edition of the Megacast. I want to thank everybody that joined us on today's show, including Christina Schlitt and Paula Bowman from the League of Women Voters of Michigan, Dewey Steffen from Great Lakes Wealth, and the Birmingham Maple Clinic's Carrie Krawiec for joining us on today's program. If you missed our episode and missed any of those interviews, want to watch them back, civiccentertv.com/megacast is the place to go. It's also where you can find information on all of our other resources and partnering stations all across the state of Michigan, which also in many cases will have some of those candidate forums we talked about in our final interview today. civiccentertv.com/megacast. Also highly encourage you to go to our local news page for up-to-date information on COVID-19 from the CDC, the MDHHS, and the Oakland County Health Division, as well as articles making headlines on both the COVID front and beyond across the state of Michigan from many great journalistic outlets. While you click through to read those articles in full, if you have the means to do so, we highly encourage you to subscribe to those publications and support journalism in your local area. Huge thank you to our crew as well, Calvin Brown and Jared Clark at the studio of My Michigan TV at Master Control today, as well as our producer, the king of television, as we call him, Larry Nyland. That does it for this Thursday edition of the Megacast. We'll return Friday with a new episode.